Everybody, it's Drags, and it's Wednesday, December 12th. Time for episode 275 of Patriots Beat on the CLNS Media Network. Find us at clnsmedia.com, and of course, follow us on Twitter at PatriotsCLNS. There are few games and rivalries in the NFL truly worth a week of build-up, but what we're about to see on Sunday, I think, is certainly one of them. And there's no one better to talk about this from the Steelers' perspective than ESPN, NFL Nation's expert Steelers senior writer, Jeremy Fowler. Follow him on Twitter at JFOWLERESPN. Welcome back from the black hole, Jeremy. How you doing?
I made it back safely, so ready to talk some football. Thanks, man.
Yeah, it's great to have you on board. Just when I thought, Jeremy, the Patriots had a bad loss on a bad ending, just as your game was beginning in Oakland, the Steelers clutched defeat from the jaws of victory against the Raiders when Chris Boswell slipped on the grass and blew that game-tying 40-yard field goal right after, by the way, Ben Roelisberger had his own hook and ladder that seemed to set up the Steelers in great shape, at least for overtime. How bad was it post-game for the Steelers on Sunday?
Yeah, you could tell that they understood how bad of a loss this was. Whether they wanted to say it publicly or not, you kind of felt the gravity of it, you know. I mean, they knew what was coming up. Patriots, Saints, and Bengals, which is always a tough game, you know, so there are no guarantees at this point. I mean, yeah, they have a half-game lead in the AFC North, but based on what's coming up, you know, they're far from a certainty they'll be in the playoffs. So they knew they needed this one. And it just, you know, the whole game was just kind of clumsy. You had Roethlisberger on the sidelines, sort of waiting to come in, but they're trying to determine what the injury even was to his ribs. You have Chris Boswell slipping, can't kick field goals. You know, players all over the place were slipping on that turf.
Really
including
bad.
Quarterback Mike Hilton on the fourth down. Which is crucial. And, you know, he's got his hands buried on his face mask afterwards. So there were a lot of emotions on that sideline, and really a defense that hopes to be better, but they just can't get stops to finish games.
So what was the deal with the X-ray room and Ben Roethlisberger? And I know the Steelers GM and Mike Tomlin were getting together. Kind of bizarre that they were trying to make up their minds, it looked like, as the game was going on, and whether or not Big Ben would return.
Yeah, well, Ben Roethlisberger spoke on his radio show. Tomlin addressed the media today, and they both had the same story. So, you know, either they had to get it all straight, or this was really the total truth that the X-ray machine is to blame. That blurry X-ray in Oakland that's been used hundreds of times, I assume, over the years in that old black hole. You know, that was their go-to today. That was the problem, and that Tomlin said he couldn't clearly indicate what the injury was, and you know, in a way to avoid worsening an injury that they didn't know about. They figured they'd let the game ride out for a little bit and only use Ben in an emergency, which looked like it was going to work out after the touchdown drive, but then they still couldn't get the stop. So it was just sort of too late. You know, whether it sounded like today from Tomlin that, you know, he was hoping that they could kind of grind out this game and not have to even worry about playing Roethlisberger again. But, you know, that's hard to do in the NFL. It's hard to just assume that you can hold a 14-10 lead and get it done with your backup.
So I'm glad you mentioned Mike Tomlin, because you have a terrific column out today talking about the test that you referred to that's coming up for the Steelers, the Patriots, Saints, and Bengals to finish out the season. It's entitled "See What This," the Steelers are going to see what this team is made of. That's a pull quote from guard David DeCastro. But what was interesting to me is the quote from Steelers coach Mike Tomlin. Redemption Sunday is coming. We'd better be prepared for it. So interpret for us, if you will, Jeremy.
Well, I don't think he's guaranteeing victory, but I think he's trying to rally his guys.
Right.
To instill some confidence somehow in a bleak moment. He's done that before. Something to the effect of, you know, we'll be bringing hell in December. After a rough stretch early in his career, and they ended up struggling that December. So, you know, we'll see if these words merit a little more strength this time around. But, you know, I think he also knows that despite some clear warts that he has a good team. The offensive line should still be one of the best in the league. They've struggled a bit to run the ball lately, but that's partly due to injury. And, you know, with Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Ben Roethlisberger, you can get hot at any time. You know, Roethlisberger always gives them a chance. And so I think they're holding on to that. A defense that's been good in spots, and they can sack the quarterback, that's for sure.
Yep.
They're just hoping that works against Tom Brady.
Yeah, that's one thing Bill Belichick was mentioning. I asked him about that in his conference call on Tuesday, and that was just how good, J.J. Watt's younger brother is, along with the other outside linebacker that the Steelers have. They have the ability to get after the quarterback, and Belichick is more than aware of what kind of damage they can do.
Yeah, it really starts with them. With front seven pressure, or really just, the front four, the two, well, if you count defensive tackle Javon Hargrave, depending on their setup. But,
yep.
They try to get pressure without having to blitz a ton. They will blitz to get creative that way. But they have their best players are up front. Obviously with losing Ryan Shazier, that's been a struggle at linebacker and the inside. And they've churned a lot of different players out in the secondary. Really, Joe Hayden's the only stable force there. But up front, they believe Watt, if he's not a superstar, he's a very, very good player. He's not the type that's maybe going to dominate the game like a Von Miller, but he's just really steady, professional, knows how to create leverage and beat coverage beat the tackle. He's a skilled guy. And so Cam Hayward's still really probably one of the best defensive inside guys. Stephon Tuitt's been pretty good of late. So, they're counting on getting pressure. It's just a matter of can they create turnovers off that pressure. That's been the biggest issue for them. They're one of the league's worst. And they're really on pace for a team record in turnovers with the lowest number ever. The defensive backfield alone is stuck on 4 interceptions, which is just not going to get it done.
The other player I was trying to think of is Bud Dupree. And how has he come along? Because I remember when he came into the league, what was it, last year or 2 years ago, he was an impact player right away.
Yeah, he's a big-time athlete, really strong, fast guy, and so that comes out in his play a lot of the times. That really, I think he has 5.5 sacks. He probably should have more like 8 because he's gotten a bunch of holding calls where he had really a near sack, and then the tackle had to sort of drag him down. So he hasn't really had that breakout moment yet as a pro. He's still maybe a little stiff as like a bender. He's not really a natural bender type and maybe overshoots the quarterback at times, doesn't take the best angles. But overall, he's been a playmaker for them. He creates a lot of disruption, and so they're going to need that Sunday for sure.
Patriots, as we all know here in New England, have dominated the rivalry in the Tom Brady era. I thought you had a great tweet on Tuesday morning when you sent out the obligatory Tom Brady mastering the Steelers. 23 touchdowns, and the Steelers wish it was 23 interceptions. 23 touchdowns and just 1 interception, I believe, in the last 8 games against the Steeler defense. Those are remarkable numbers.
I mean, they're remarkable even for a quarterback as accomplished as Tom Brady, right? I mean,
yeah.
It's sort of an odd level of dominance that really the Steelers on some levels can't figure out. They feel like the last couple games against them in Pittsburgh that they've played okay against them in spots, but then, late in the game, like you saw last year, Brady, Gronkowski, they drive down the field. In fact, Mike Tomlin was asked today, have you seen anything that can stop Gronkowski as far as coverages? And he said, yes, but not from us. We'd like to be a part of that. Talking about other teams potentially stopping Gronk, but they have not. So just, tight ends cause problems for this defense anyways, and it's always Gronk. They're hoping that maybe if he is on a slight decline or maybe the running ability is not there like it used to be, that they can take advantage of that, but he always seems to find a way to get Pittsburgh.
So it's interesting you say that. Remember all the talk after the Patriots handled the Steelers in the AFC Championship a couple of years ago on the way to Super Bowl 51, there was all that talk about the Steelers have to get away from playing zone against Rob Gronkowski. It just won't work.
Right.
Then the Steelers last year looked like they had made a pretty good adjustment. They led 24-16 going into the fourth quarter, and the Patriots weren't completely they weren't effective really offensively at all for the first three quarters. And then they put 11 points on them. The end of the game drive, as you mentioned. Is Keith Butler starting to figure out that he's got to mix things up, not just pure zone, not just man-to-man?
Yeah, I think so. And Tomlin did say that today, especially with Gronkowski. It takes multiple guys in multiple techniques against a player like Gronkowski. So, they've tried to be that way this year. In fact, they've tried to infuse more man coverage the last two seasons, and Joe Hayden has helped. You saw it a little bit Sunday against the Raiders where, Derek Carr really didn't target Jordy Nelson a whole lot because Hayden had him pretty well locked up, and so they just kept going to the tight end, Jared Cook, and then the Steelers must have put five different guys on him, a safety, at least one corner, two different linebackers, and none of it really worked. And so the problem is sort of becoming they're trying a lot of things, and they show improvement in spots, but to have like a really good lockdown pass covering safety or linebacker just hasn't really worked out. And Ryan Shazier, unfortunately for them, was that guy, or was developing into that guy before he got hurt.
Speaking of last year, speaking with a terrific senior writer covering the Steelers for ESPN, NFL Nation, Jeremy Fowler, how much does that Jesse James overturned touchdown from a year ago burn not just the team, the coaching staff, but their fan base still?
Well, it's funny because this whole year you've seen the catch rule evolve largely because of that play. Now, to an extent, the Des Bryant play a couple years ago in Green Bay and some other examples. But, the James catch or non-catch was sort of the catalyst for changes in that regard that you've seen around the league. And so there's probably a bitterness there associated with the fan base. Why couldn't we have got that one? And, with James, too, I mean, he's basically talked about before how his life's changed a little bit even through all this, or at least early on. He's getting a lot of calls and text messages from loved ones and maybe unnecessarily, and that he wished he had a do-over. He could just secure the ball first without trying to make a football move. But, I think the Steelers largely felt like they outplayed New England last year, and they really weren't the same after that game. You could see it in that Jacksonville loss in the playoffs. Even though they were explosive on offense, the season had got away from them, and they had put so much stock privately in wanting to beat New England. You can talk about taking it a week at a time and respecting every opponent, and they do, but there was more juice last year in I think it was week 15, where they just wanted to get past that. Now it's a little different dynamic. They're not the same 13-3 team. Now they're just, it's not as much about New England as it is just about trying to get a win.
Speaking with Jeremy Fowler, terrific senior writer covering the Steelers for ESPN NFL Nation. Hey, everybody, want to tell you about a new wellness brand for men. It's called Hims. With the windy winter months coming up, I want my skin to feel clean and fresh. That's why I swear by Hims Everyday Moisturizer. It's a daily moisturizer that you won't want to give up on because it won't give up on you. This light moisturizer helps keep your skin from looking overly shiny or oily. Hims is also great for another common problem, hair loss. 66% of men lose their hair by the age of 35. Thing is, when you start to notice hair loss, it's too late. It's always easier to keep the hair you have than to replace the hair you've lost. The solution, 4hims.com. One-stop shop for hair loss, skincare, and sexual wellness for men. Go to 4hims.com/trags. That's FORHIMS.com/TRAGS. 4hims.com/trags. Speaking with Jeremy Fowler, the terrific senior writer and columnist covering the Steelers for ESPN NFL Nation. We talked about this a little bit before the break. really haven't figured out the Steelers at all this year, Jeremy. They're 7-5-1, of course. The 21-21 tie in Cleveland to open the season. They were lucky to get that tie. Then there was the loss the next week at home to the Chiefs, which, really is not a terrible loss considering the year Pat Mahomes has had in the Chiefs. Then they appeared to get their act together, the win in Tampa, a loss at home to the Ravens. Then they reel off 6 straight wins, now 3 straight losses. Who are they?
Who are they? The Steelers are a explosive passing offensive team that can apply a lot of pressure on the quarterback, but that does not outweigh their deficiencies. And so that leaves them sort of stuck in the middle and underachieving in a lot of spots. They're probably too talented to be 7-5-1, but they're also, when you lose 2 really top 20 to 30 players in the league, like Le'Veon Bell and Ryan Shazier, it's going to show. You need guys like that to take over games. And those absences have been an issue. James Conner's been a nice fill-in, but he had struggled a little bit before he got hurt with the ankle injury. And now that the backups in this situation really struggled last week to run the ball. And so, that leaves them unbalanced, which they don't like to be for the most part. So it's really all on Roethlisberger, which, he can certainly get the job done. But if the Patriots can bait him into a mistake or few, that changes the complexion of the game as well, because, he does throw the occasional interception. I believe he's tied for second in the league with that. Since 2015, he's gotten, 50-plus interceptions. So, that has to be a factor as well. And really, defensively, their team's still searching for an identity, which is a major issue to have 13 weeks into the year. They say they want to stop the run first, but they've let teams run on them. And so that leaves them vulnerable, even if they can rush the passer.
How long did it really take for the Steelers to get over the ugly Le'Veon Bell divorce? And secondly, did you get to pirate anything from Bell's locker like the rest of the team did?
There were a lot of Jordan cleats available. That's about all that was in there. So the players made quick work of that. It's sort of complicated, but it's simple at the same time because, the Steelers sort of, they saw the duality of, wanting a teammate to be there with him, but also wanting him to get his money. And so I think a lot of guys were torn about that. Not the offensive line, though. They were really frustrated. Not that Bell wanted to get paid, but they just wish it was handled differently and that they could have prepared for the whole year or off-season going into it knowing that Bell wasn't going to be there. So, the whole thing was a charade. And that week 11 when they went in the locker room, it was playful. It wasn't malicious by any stretch, but it was a little telling in that I think guys wanted closure,
Yep.
And really they've played poorly since they've gotten closure. So that's the funny thing. So, it's really it comes down to the team was willing to wait for him to the last minute because they know he's a great player. And right now they miss him. There's no way around it. But there's no use in talking about it anymore either, because they're all sort of past it.
Why has Juju Smith-Schuster been able to break out this year with Antonio Brown?
Well, it's funny. Everybody around here keeps talking about, or at least players talk about how Antonio Brown gets double teamed so much, and that leaves Juju Smith-Schuster open with one-on-one, which, has been true, but something is going to have to change with that, where maybe pretty soon Juju's going to start to get double teams, because he's winning pretty consistently against one-on-one coverage, but he can win in the slot. They moved him outside more in recent weeks, and that's where his game has really taken off. He can go up high and get it. He can get yards after the catch. He's not an elite Tyreek Hill type speedster, but he is fast enough, and he uses his speed really well in kind of a quick twitch way. And so, he's become a leader. There's really no way around it. I keep waiting for some sort of issue to expose itself. Like I was thinking maybe man-to-man coverage against elite cornerbacks would become an issue. Like last year against Jacksonville, he didn't do much in the playoff game. But he's matched up against some pretty good corners and has fared well. And so, Bill Belichick on a conference call with us just said today, is like most teams want just one elite guy, and the Steelers have 2. And, that's hard to match up against.
It's interesting you bring up the whole the double coverage aspect of Antonio Brown's game versus Smith-Schuster, because if I recall correctly, Antonio Brown had a quote essentially saying that after the Denver game, the loss that started this 3-game skid after Smith-Schuster's 97-yard touchdown in that game. And Brown said, no, I wasn't surprised since Brown was drawing the double coverage.
Yeah, that play, and I remember watching it back, and the safety did roll to Brown's side, and that's typically what happens. It's not like a hard double team, but it's, the safety, especially in a single high look, will go to Brown most of the time, and you got to wonder if that will change at some point. Brown would love that. He would love some one-on-one coverage, because the times that he has gotten it, like in the Carolina game earlier or the Los Angeles Chargers game, they've taken, Ben and AB have taken advantage of that really early and gotten big games. And so that's why you don't see it very often. I mean, he's still the same player for the most part. I don't really think he's lost quickness or anything. It's just the flow of the season hasn't gotten him the same numbers.
Speaking with outstanding Steelers senior writer for ESPN's NFL Nation, Jeremy Fowler. Hey everybody, I want to tell you about a revolutionary way to follow your investments. It's called Robinhood. Robinhood is an investing app that lets you buy and sell stocks, ETFs, options, and cryptos, all commission-free. They strive to make financial services work for everyone, not just the wealthy. It's a non-intimidating way for stock market newcomers to invest for the first time with true confidence. It's simple and intuitive. It's clear design with data presented in an easy-to-digest way. Take it from me, I use Robinhood's app every day to monitor my investments, and I can make informed decisions based on real-time data as well as market trends and history. Sign up at patriots.robinhood.com. That's patriots.robinhood.com. Again, speaking with Jeremy Fowler, covering the Steelers as a senior writer for ESPN's NFL Nation. Glad you mentioned Ben Roelisberger before the break. Look, he has Hall of Fame credentials, 2 Super Bowl wins. He's been to 3 Super Bowls. But there's the flip side of it. And everybody talks about the Jesse James fumble, right, at the goal line. But it was a play 2 plays later that actually cost them the chance at OT, and that was the red zone interception. And there was the play in Denver you made reference to. What do Steeler fans think of when they think of Ben making those mistakes in the red zone?
Well, yeah, I think he has 4 interceptions in the red zone alone, so it's really held back. Those turnovers have held back the offense from putting up even more points, because it's already a very strong offense, one of the best as far as passing yards. Prolific offense across the board, or at least when James Conner was running the ball well early in the year and they were going to him, but. I think Steelers fans are, they've been around Roethlisberger long enough where they appreciate that every game he's in, he gives them a chance to win, and I think most people here wouldn't trade him, really for anybody outside of Tom Brady or maybe Aaron Rodgers, but, even look at the Packers are struggling this year too, and so Roethlisberger's never had a losing season. That probably won't happen this year either, and that's a pretty telling stat. They also know that he's got some Brett Favre in him, and that includes some interceptions. He even calls himself a gunslinger. He's mentioned the word that he's going to continue to sling it, and that gets him in trouble. In fact, I spoke with his offensive coordinator, Randy Fichtner, just last week about this, and he said sometimes Roethlisberger will make a throw, roll into his left 50-yard bullet between 2 defenders in the end zone, and you'll say, what was that? And then he'll throw another pass 3 times later, and you'll say, what was that? And it will turn into a turnover. And so he's one of those guys that will frustrate you a little bit, might even cost you a game or 2, but he's usually going to win you a lot of games that maybe you were out of through 3 quarters, and he leads you back.
So I saw the quote on Tuesday from Ben Roethlisberger, and I think it actually was from his radio show as well, and that was the fact that, he's 2-9 against the Brady-led Patriots, right? And he's essentially, I'm going to paraphrase here, who hasn't struggled against the Patriots? Is that essentially the way he looks at this rivalry, and the fact that he's had such trouble against Tom Brady?
Well, I think so. It's easy to look around the league outside of Miami maybe right now. Maybe Baltimore once upon a time. Not many teams have really put New England in their place consistently. And so, that maybe that's a rallying cry for the Steelers, that they can believe that they can beat them. And you would think, as good as the Patriots are, you would think the law of averages at some point for a team that's been a playoff team nearly every year for the last decade, that would average out. But it doesn't seem to happen. and it usually comes down to who makes plays in the fourth quarter. And, you even saw it last year that the Steelers at the goal line, and, there was just chaos about what play was even coming in. Were they going to run a play? Were they going to kick a field goal? They need to have true cohesion this year across the board, be prepared for every scenario, and really play their best game of the year to have a chance.
Do you think the Steelers get it done this weekend? Because, look, the Patriots, if they win this weekend, they're going to finish 12-4, because I don't think they're going to lose to the Bills and Jets at home. But the Steelers, we already went over what their schedule looks like after the Patriot game. It's the Saints, and then they have the Bengals. And I think the Steelers are almost at home in a must-win situation.
Yeah, I'm torn on this one because I think they get one of the next two. I don't think they beat New England and New Orleans. I think they win one of those two, but I'm hard-pressed to think they're going to go into the Superdome and win that one. But I'm also hard-pressed to think that they're going to defy odds and beat the Patriots, too. So I know that's non-committal. If I had to pick right now, I would say that the Patriots will win in the close game. The Steelers, there's no guarantee they get James Conner back. So, they're probably at their best when they can run the ball effectively against New England. That's what they wanted to do in the playoffs 2 years ago when Le'Veon Bell really had it rolling, and then he got that groin injury, and that changed their whole game plan. And so if they can't run the ball this time, it's all on Roethlisberger, and he can take over. He can get hot. He can get hotter than anybody. Put up those 400 or 500-yard type games, but I just don't know if it's going to be enough against a defense that seems to be once again in transition. Maybe if they can somehow pull this out, this will be a spark to someone, or maybe it's going to be a springboard to the playoffs. So it's going to be fascinating. But yeah, when do you get in town? Saturday night?
I get in town Saturday night, and I'll have some type of brunch before the game, get settled. And when they're on the road like this, I like a 4:25 start. How about you?
Yeah, it's usually a sweet spot because 8's too late. You're going to bed at 3 or 4 a.m.
Yeah.
But then 1 o'clock game, you don't have the morning. So I'm with you. 4:25 is a good sweet spot, especially when you're at home like I am. You can do your thing early in the morning, then go off, get ready for what should be one of the best games of the year, man. You're going to have to get some Pittsburgh delicacies.
How can people follow you on Twitter?
They can follow me at Fowler, ESPN, and we'll be active there all game, and it should be a great one.
All right, I want to thank everybody for downloading today's podcast. I want to thank our terrific guest, Jeremy Fowler, an outstanding senior writer covering the Steelers for ESPN's NFL Nation. Also want to, of course, thank our great sponsors, Hims and Robinhood. For producer Mike Alongi and the founder of the network, Nick Gelso, this is Mike Petralia, and this has been the Patriots Beat podcast powered by CLNS Media.
Hello, I'm Dan Lothian, host of the Behind the Media podcast on the CLNS Media Network. Along with Jimmy Young, we dive into the biggest media headlines each week with honest, informed, and sometimes irreverent perspectives. It's not all serious. We deliver information and entertainment. As we like to say on Behind the Media, we find the interesting in media so you don't have to go searching for it. Listen to our podcast and get prepped for the next trip to the water cooler. Subscribe to Behind the Media wherever you get your podcast, or find us on www.clnsmedia.com.